Welcome. So glad to have you here with me today. Today's topic is call in your soulmate. And I know that there's a lot of interest in this topic. There always is. Before we get started with that, I want to say hello to my listeners in Valencia, Venezuela. I'm so happy to see the audience base growing week after week there. It's thrilling. So glad to have you here. Let's jump into this topic. It's not going to be a surprise to any of you or to anyone in the spiritual field that this is always of great interest. People, when they come in for assistance, one of the primary reasons is their love life. And they often ask, when am I going to meet my soulmate? When am I going to meet my soulmate? So I want to talk about this. I don't talk about this a lot. So this tells you how many people have been bringing it up of late. So I figured I would. First off, there are different kinds of soulmates, and not every soulmate will be a wonderful long-term romantic partner for you. So a lot of people don't know, they think they have one soulmate, but no, every person has multiple soulmates. So if it doesn't work out with one, then maybe it'll work out with another, but you have more opportunities to meet a soulmate. So what I'm addressing in this show, let me just say this right up front. What I'm addressing is calling in a wonderful long-term romantic partner for yourself. Because sometimes soulmate relationships can be very chaotic, and it could be, a lot of arguing, a lot of disagreements. They're not comfortable, but you learn from them, you shift forward with them. Maybe you've already had some of those and didn't even realize it. Maybe you thought they couldn't have been a soulmate because things weren't all rainbows and puppies, but nothing is. Nothing is like that, So, if you are working on yourself personally and spiritually, it's effort. And then you get another person into the relationship who is working on themselves on those levels, and it's really a lot of effort. So be prepared for that, and don't have this romantic notion of what it is going to be. It's still a relationship, so it takes work. The number one thing, and might be causing you to have not met your soulmate or any of your soulmates yet, is that you need to do work on yourself. And people don't like to hear that. But honestly, if you haven't met a soulmate yet that works for you for a romantic partner, I think you have nothing to lose. And here's the problem. If you bypass doing the work on yourself and then you meet a soulmate, some things can happen that are not so great. You might not even recognize them as your soulmate. You might not be ready for that kind of relationship. Things just may not work out and you miss that opportunity. So I think it's really important. Like, to me, the reason we're here, if you want to look at that, is to be better people, to be better. And like, you want to improve yourself on every level. So I know a lot of people, in my personal life, I've met people who have really high expectations of who they want in a partner, and yet are blind to their own faults, their own shortcomings. And I think it's so important, the contemplative work, the introspective work, where you're really looking at who you are, what you're like, how you act, how you react, how you feel, what you think, and really working on that, improving it. So the first thing is you want to identify specific characteristics of the type of soulmate you're looking for, which really, let's just take soulmate out of it. The type of romantic partner you're looking for. What qualities do you want? Do you want them to be kind? Do you want them to be loyal, trustworthy? Do you want them to be funny? Do you want them to be compassionate? You need to have those qualities in spades yourself. You will attract what you are emitting energetically. And that's true for everything in life. So, listen to what I'm saying with this and put that into your career, your friendships, everything. So, but today we're just looking at a wonderful long-term soulmate. So you want to shine out into the world the qualities that you've identified as what you want in a partner. And when you find this partner, you work on yourself to that level, you're going to attract a whole different type of person in. And if your soulmate that you have a great chance of a long-term relationship with, if they've been working on themselves and you haven't, they might not be interested in you. So, it goes both ways here. There's a lot of reasons why we may not meet a soulmate or not know we did or it doesn't work out. But I'm trying to help you eliminate as much of that as possible because I know how many of you really want this. And I want to help you get there. So then you're identifying your own character flaws. What is it about me people have mentioned that I'm resistant to hearing, or I know is true about myself, but I haven't wanted to really look at it or do anything about it? It's taking the time to identify those things and then figure out how you can start working on them. Very often it is just about tuning in more closely to everything you do, the way you think, what you say, your interactions. And as an empath, I wish I didn't know this, but I can tell instantly what people are thinking about me or how they feel about me. And if it shifts, I feel it. So then that's a barometer for me to know, oh, I just shifted into something that's not so good. I need to think about that and be aware of that. And you might just need to pay close attention if you're not an empath. It may not be as easy, but pay close attention to people's micro expressions. And micro expressions are these very just seconds, mere seconds long, fleeting facial expressions that tell a person's true feelings. No matter what they're saying, it's what they're really feeling. And so, for instance, you might ask a person something and they say, oh, no problem. But you see a micro expression go across their face that tells you differently. And if you can really become attuned to this, and anybody can with effort, unless you have some disorder like people who have narcissism and particularly sociopaths have a lot of trouble. People with autism have a lot of trouble reading facial expressions. So if you are on the autistic spectrum, it might be difficult for you. So you might have to come up with another way to really figure out how you're affecting people with your words, with your deeds, with your presence. And taking that time to really just think about it. I think I think about it too much. I do. I think my whole life I've thought way too much, and I don't know how to stop that. I work on it, but how do you stop yourself from thinking? So I'm always thinking about how I could have handled a situation better, how I could have worded something nicer, how I could have been kinder, how I could have avoided a situation. Always thinking about that. And I don't think you need to always think about that, but you probably do need to increase the amount of attention you put to that, because there's a lot for you to learn about yourself in that time. So when I say contemplation time or introspection time, that's just quiet time. Time when you don't have the TV or radio on, you're not talking to people, you're not distracted with your phone. You're just thinking about something specific that you want to know more about. And if you're having trouble with this part of it, which is a really important part, ask trusted people who will be kind but honest with you and say, I need you to help me with something because I want to be a better person. And I would love to know what you think my 3 biggest strengths are and the 3 things I maybe need to work on. And see what they say, and don't get upset. Do not have any negative reaction or they'll never be honest with you again. And that honesty is of great value. And so you're going to people that you know are not going to be jerks. They're going to be kind about it. And then you need to take that and look at the people, what they said. Is there a common theme going in those comments? Then if multiple people are telling you something, you need to really pay attention. If one person says something and you know in your heart it's true, you need to pay attention to that. Now, that's the easy part of this whole thing. I've always said there's nothing harder in this world really than changing yourself. And yet the only person in the world you will ever change is yourself. So if you're willing to do it, your odds are good that you're going to make excellent progress with this. And it means that you're monitoring yourself really closely, catching yourself. And so if you catch yourself thinking in a way or speaking in a way that you don't want to, then you flip it instantly and turn it into something that you would want to think or you would want to say. You're retraining your brain, your mind to act and react in a different way. It is not easy. It's not fast. But you can do this. And, I think it's kind of nice to have a partner in this. If you know somebody else, maybe you have a couple friends who are looking for their soulmate, long-term partner soulmate, and you can help each other and support each other through this. So identify the positive traits that you desire and make sure, identify again, do I have those? I want somebody to be a really compassionate person. Am I a really compassionate person? And if the answer is no, you're not going to attract that. And if you do, they're not going to be happy in the relationship because they're going to expect and need and want that. So these kind of things is really important, just making a list of these things. So first is going to be the traits you want in a partner, a wonderful long-term partner, hopefully your soulmate. Identifying your own flaws, identifying the positive traits you want to have in yourself and that you need to increase. The next thing would be raising your frequency. There's a reason why we talk about this so much, because let me just say, for those of you who are new, who are just tuning in, your frequency is your vibration. It's how you as a being of energy vibrate. Everything in the world is vibrating energy, including the planet we live on. So the rate of frequency that you vibrate at can attract or repel. If your wonderful soulmate is already got a high frequency and you don't, you are not going to be a good match. You won't even like each other when you meet. So that's sometimes what's happening when you read about people who meet the soulmate and they know in their heart it's a soulmate and they just are instantly attracted and that person doesn't want to be with them. They need to work on their frequency is usually what it is. I mean, there could be other factors, but quite often when I'm working with people, I can identify that it is a frequency issue. And the good news is there's so many ways that you can raise your frequency. If you already have my book, Let Your Angels Lead, go to the troubleshooting section and look in there about all the ways to raise your frequency. For those of you who don't have it, I'm going to give you a few ways you can do this to get started. And that is, number one, do not watch, listen to, read, or discuss violent topics, like scary movies, violent movies, books, TV, magazines, whatever. You cannot have that. That is going to be a very low frequency topic, anything like that. And you'll eventually feel it. I don't think my daughter will mind if I say this, but when I was first telling her, I told her I can't watch scary movies anymore. And when she was little, not little, but young, we used to love to watch scary movies and I really loved them. And then there came a point in my spiritual growth where I would try to watch one and I'd feel pain in my solar plexus, which is your upper stomach. It's one of your chakras. And I would feel very nauseous. And I realized that that is affecting my energy. That is my body telling me that there's negative energy trying to puncture my positive energy. And I would shut it off and then it would go away and I'd be fine. So I told her about this and she's like, And she said, I think that's happening to me. I think that this was years later. We had this conversation. She's like, I think that's happening to me because all of a sudden I don't feel good when I try to watch something scary. And I'm like, avoid it. That's your body telling you that's not good for you. And I'll tell you something very hard to avoid, but there's a lot of political I'm not going to call them discussions. A discussion I'm totally fine with, but people yelling, people threatening, people raging is such low frequency energy that it is incredibly painful to me. And it probably is incredibly painful to you, whether you feel the pain as I do, like an actual pain, or maybe you just start to feel like you're picking up the energy of the anger, the anxiety, the fear, or you feel drained of energy. So pay attention. There's a lot of different ways that negative energy can creep into our energetic field and really affect our goal to raise our frequency. So another thing that you can do is spend more time outdoors. Being outdoors, especially if it's in a place that you think is beautiful. I feel so incredibly blessed to live in the Sedona area, and I have park passes, and I go for long walks, and I don't go up into the Red Rocks too much, but around the base of them and around the Oak Creek, which is beautiful. And just getting out where you're in fresh air and you're in nature and you're away from technology. Please don't take your phone with you. It would kind of defeat the purpose. Another thing that you can do is pay attention to what you put into your body. So these are some simple things, but not so simple because it requires change. I find that this part of raising your frequency generally is a years-long process, not all at once. You snap your fingers and you've changed yourself. It's maybe starting with drinking a lot more water and cutting back on other beverages, definitely coming to a point where you either cut way back or eliminate alcohol, because alcohol will lower your frequency and it also does other things you don't want. We'll talk about it in another episode. Any kind of chemicals you put in your body, particularly drugs of any kind, medications, you have to be really careful with. I have to take medication, so I'm not an anti-medication person, but I do have issues with taking drugs. Not only is it illegal, but even the stuff that's not illegal has an effect on your frequency. So I'm very conscious of that. I cannot hear, see, and feel angels if my frequency isn't as high as possible, and then I can't help my clients. So it's imperative for me to keep my frequency high, and I'm very vigilant about it. You are not angel communicators, probably. I mean, some of you may be. Let me know. I'd love to know that. But you are interested in calling in a wonderful soulmate. And I'm telling you, the fastest thing you can do is raise your frequency. So there's many, many other things you can do. I actually have a list of 10 ways to raise your frequency that is on my website on the blog. You have to scroll back a little bit, but it is on ivoryangelicmedium.com on the blog. So you can look at that and then introduce one of those into your life. Make it part of your routine for 2 to 3 weeks, then introduce another one. Don't try to do all 10 at once. And once you have those 10 integrated into your life, then I'm telling you, you can do a search online, and there are so many ways you can raise your frequency that we haven't talked about yet. So if you don't like one, there'll be something else you will find easier to incorporate into your routine. That's probably, like I said, the biggest thing. The next thing is, oh, this is a tough one. Don't shoot the messenger here, but you've got to get your priorities straight. When I meet with people who tell me that they desperately desire to have a relationship, wonderful relationship with a soulmate, but they can't find one who makes enough money. How much money that person makes has zero to do with them being your soulmate or a wonderful soulmate. So if you're really attached to your partner having a lot of money, then you are still very firmly in 3D living, which means material things, money, possessions, ego-based. It doesn't mean you're egotistical. Most of the world is in 3D. So that is not a put down, that is an observation. But if you are worried about how much money they make above other aspects, then it's something for you to think about. Like, is that a deal breaker for you? if it is, it's really going to hamper your ability to be in a wonderful soulmate relationship. Yes, there are some people out there who are high frequency, who make a lot of money, but most people who have really worked on themselves on a spiritual level have come to the place where they detach from the importance of money and possessions. And you'll see them living more simply, they don't drive the best cars. They don't, they just don't care about that kind of thing. And other people may not understand that because they're not thinking that way yet. So what do you really need in a soulmate? What are the things you must have for them to be your long-term partner? And I encourage you to really take a hard look at the list that comes up. So what are the deal breakers? Maybe they have all these qualities, but they have this one, maybe there's 3 things that will be deal breakers for you. I encourage you to have a firm list and really know what those deal breakers are ahead of time. Most deal breakers, having been in the mental health field a long time, most relationships break up because of finances, children, that's just really the thing, how to raise the children and what to do with money. So that's probably, things you might want to think about putting on your list, depending on your age. A lot of my clients are, I've got clients of all ages from 20s to 70s. So you may be so far past childbearing years and not even thinking about that's not even an issue. However, think about this. What if the person feels like they don't want children around at all? They do not like children, and you have grandchildren or adult children. I've run into that, and it was a deal breaker for me. It's definitely, if my child and my grandchildren, my daughter's not child anymore, my daughter and my grandchildren are not welcome or not encouraged to visit and be there, I'm not going to be able to be with that person. And maybe the same is true for you, but you've got your own list. You are an individual, you have your own needs, and you really need to think about it. Another one might be if a person's a workaholic, if that's a deal breaker for you, the kind of things, because until you know what your deal breakers are, until you really know, how can you rule that person out quickly? You might meet a soulmate and they have one of those deal breakers, and you need to be strong enough to say, well, yeah, you're a soulmate, but I don't think you're the kind that's going to be the long-term for me. You've got other soulmates. You are not walking away from your only opportunity to have a romantic relationship with a soulmate. You are identifying one that won't work for you. And something else, I think my grandma, Gil, the Southern Alabama grandma, is the one who said this to me. She used to talk about how looks fade, because I would say, oh, you're so pretty. When she would show me a picture when she was 16, and I said, you're so pretty. And she said, looks fade and money goes away. And I've had other people tell me that. And then over the years, I've seen it too. You don't want to pick a partner based just on their looks or too much on their looks, because honestly, you better love who they really are. So learning to see the person's true essence, their soul, who they really are, not the shell that they're in. Yeah, you want to be attracted to your romantic partner, but if it's mostly about looks, that's not going to stay. There's no amount of money and effort that's going to keep someone looking like they're in their 20s, 30s, or 40s forever. It's just not. And so there has to be more depth to it. And so you're training yourself to look for those things that are of more depth, their intelligence, their compassion, their kindness, their ability to love, their ability to express love, the way that they show love. A lot of men show love more than they talk about love by the things they do for you. That's how they're showing love. And so, I think that we need to realize that. And a big one for me, through the years, yes, I've dated people who made a lot of money. And I would remember just sitting back. I was sitting at a bed and breakfast, and I was at a breakfast, and I was watching this person. And I thought, there's not enough here. There's not enough here for me to stay interested. If a person doesn't have the intellect, can't hold a conversation, doesn't have enough areas of interest, how do they treat people that they deem as serving them? Waiters, waitresses, people like this, how do they treat them? Because that really shows what a person is really like. And believe me, if you don't like how they're treating people they see as serving them, eventually you will be on the receiving end of some of those kinds of negative behaviors. So it's really just observing. And I always encourage women, so that you don't fall in love with the wrong person, there's two things. I'm just going to be super real with you here. Number one, don't have sex with them. That needs to be held off, because if a woman has sex with a man, immediately she starts falling in love because of her chemicals in her body. The other thing is, you've got to be able to keep the rose-colored glasses off. You've got to be watching and looking for the red flags, and you don't want to be manufacturing them because you're hyper vigilant about it, but you need to be watching. This goes for you guys too. This is not just for women, but this goes for you guys as well. There are problem females out there, just like there are problem males. And it's really more about the person not being the right one for you. It's not a judgment of you're a bad person. It's just realizing they're not the one for you. So in your search for this wonderful soulmate, you don't want to let yourself fall in love with someone telling yourself it's my soulmate, just because you let yourself get attached too closely. You let yourself fall in love. You put the rose-colored glasses on. You have to be able to see them for who they really are. And that includes soulmates. So I have met a couple soulmates through the years, and one of them in particular, I think about, there was a really great connection, but I could see they had really serious anger issues, never towards me, but serious anger issues. And that's something I have problems with because of my past. And even if I didn't, I wouldn't want that. And for that reason, I put up an emotional barrier and I kept it as friends, because I knew that was a deal breaker for me. I'm not going to live any more of my life tiptoeing around in fear for my peaceful mind, my sanity, my health, my safety. I won't do that anymore. So, you know what that is for you, but I'm just hoping that I can help some of you. If you are focused on some of those more shallow, we have to say shallow, I'm sorry, but that's not money, and looks are shallow things that are not really telling you about the depths of that person's soul and their mind. So try to look beyond that. And if your soulmate happens to be wealthy, good for you, but just make sure they really have the qualities that you need and you've been looking for. And I just want to wrap this up by saying, it really does come down to working on yourself. And if you know in your heart that you lack what you want in a soulmate, then I would stop looking for them. I would just put every bit of time and money and attention I had, and I've done this, into myself. And not selfishly, not an ego thing, but to being a better person, to working. If you had abuse in your childhood, it's probably affecting how you act, how you think, how you react now. That's just one example. If you've been through a toxic relationship before, it's definitely going to affect your view. If you identify, let's say you had a parent who had anger issues and you kind of have anger issues, that's something you can work on. Don't try to work on all of it at once. You'll probably get overwhelmed and give up. Pick one thing. What is the biggest character flaw that you have that you would not put up with in a soulmate, and really work on that. Yeah, I have a background in mental health. I've had a lot of therapy over the years to help me through some childhood abuse issues that happened with people that came into my life. And I continue to go back as needed when I realize that, hey, here's something I haven't really addressed. There are some things you're not going to be able to work through yourself. So some of this you can, some of this, if it's not working, you might need to see a therapist and you're going to make more rapid progress. If you really get stuck, like if there's something big that's like some traumatic event, consider doing something like thought field therapy. You can see that on my website. I just did that yesterday. One of the techniques for removing emotional pain attached to traumatic memories, and it allows you to heal faster. I've been doing it on myself for a very long time, off and on. And it's really helped me a lot, because when you can do a technique like that, you can step away from the emotions and just think about it, talk about it, write about it, and not get bogged down in the negative emotions it brings up. So just something else to think about. And I hope that this has opened your eyes to a different way to bring in your soulmate that you really want, a wonderful one, not just any old soulmate, but a wonderful long-term romantic partner soulmate. And if you are listening and you do these things and you call in your soulmate, email me and let me know. I will be so happy for you. In the meantime, thank you for listening and watching. So glad to have you here. Next week's topic is your angels never abandon you. And I'm going to tell you how I know that for a fact and how that pertains to you and the world at large right now. In the meantime, may your angels surround you. May your angels protect you every moment, every day of your life. I'll see you next week.